Alright, everybody, and welcome to Path of Exile. That's right, today we're checking out a dungeon crawler. For those of you who don't know what that means, think Diablo, except a free-to-play game. And while that might scare some people off, there's actually a lot of potential in this game if you're just willing to go and check it out. Which we're about to do, so let's get started. So whenever the game first starts, if you've never played it before, you can go ahead and select a character, or we can create a character. Now there's a couple different things to note here on this screen. There are seasons and challenges that you can choose from. Right now there's not much going on. We can pick a hardcore character, which is one death and you're done. You can go play solo, all kinds of interesting stuff, which for the time being we're going to do solo. But now we can choose a character. Each character has a different skill set associated with them. The witch here is intelligence. We have dexterity mixed with strength. We have dexterity, we have an overall character, we have a strength character. We have all kinds of interesting things. Now, there is no actual character creator. Instead, you just select one of the classes here, and then you choose a name. After choosing your class, we find ourselves washed up on a beach after a nasty accident. You can choose to turn off all the tutorials. There are a lot of tutorials, but as a returning player,
The very sand shivers with malice. There's a power here that welcomes me.
we are able to just go ahead and skip those currently. And you find yourself right next to your first starting weapon and your first quest. Now, to move your character, there is no ASWD. Instead, we're pointing and clicking. Very, very simple. Rip. We can now fight some enemies. As you can see, the lighting looks pretty good. They have made some pretty significant upgrades to the visuals of the game, but we get our first skill gem. Now, skill gems are going to be playing a large part of what you do in the game. As you can see, this one is a blue gem. It will only fit into blue slots. You can multi-class, meaning you can have a barbarian that's super intelligent and can shoot fireballs, which is kind of neat. As you move through the starting tutorial beach, you will of course encounter plenty of enemies, and some of them will even drop some gear for you to equip. As you can see, we have some armor. Each character and class type will have a different set of skills and armor types that you're going to want to equip. Anything with spell damage, spell speed, and things like that is definitely more the witch's style. Armor protects you against physical damage. There's even shields that protect you against magical damage and will block damage from going into your life pool. The witch itself has much lower life, so you're going to want a bunch of shields to protect that. Although we do get a much higher magic pool, meaning a ton of this. A lot of fun. As you can see, the fire does a good bit of damage to these starting enemies. We will take a bit of damage. There is a ton of healing items that you can use throughout the game, although you can run out of mana. I would suggest, if you're grabbing the witch yourself, to make sure that you get plenty of magic regeneration,
I need more mana.
or you're gonna have that problem.
And I thought
Bam.
I'd be a dead woman by now.
As you slay monsters, you will get levels, which you can then put into your passive skill tree, which is massive. As you can see, starting here in the center, we are able to select a number of things. Because we are playing the witch, we want to take things from the intelligence. Now, there's spell damage to start with, or you can give yourself some energy shield. I will take the spell damage off the bat, because mana issues aside, it'll help us further down the road. There are a number of boss creatures and unique creatures that you will come across that will drop some pretty good loot, and some of them that drop some really nice unique items that you can then use to further your ability to get through the game. Now, this one here does have a unique item associated with it, although it's not very powerful. It is one that players do like to get early on. That way you can have yourself a little bit easier time as you're leveling. Bam! Unfortunately, we didn't get the drop, but we did get a ton of loot, including wands. Now, you can dual wield in this game. Bam! Which is really cool. We can go ahead and dual wield any weapon that we'd like, although this does change a lot of things. There are certain abilities that are shield only, so we would have to have a shield. There are certain ones that are dual wield only, so you're going to have to decide which playstyle is for you. There's a lot of options. After defeating your first boss, you are given the opportunity to then enter your first town, where a number of NPCs wait to give you your first couple of quests. And some of the NPCs even have rewards for you for having taken out that big baddie there at the beginning. For me, I think we're gonna take some summon zombies. On top of NPCs and quests, you can see other players in town, as well as pick up some parties. If you're wanting to group up with others, you can invite your friends to your game. You have your stash box where you can store items if you're needing to, and there's a waypoint here where you can teleport to other locations. In order to unlock more waypoints, you have to travel to different areas and click on the waypoint as you find them within the map. There's a lot here to do, but after doing so, you can move into the next zone and begin your journey, and eventually you'll become pretty powerful. Now, there are places within the game called hideouts that will allow you to place down things that you've earned by going through the season. As you can see, my weapons here have a nice little effect to them, and my feet have a nice little trail behind them. That's from completing certain challenges. There are paid challenges that you can do with like a battle pass, and you can earn yourself a ton more cosmetics. These bases here will allow you to put down crafting benches. You can also place down NPCs and a bunch of decorative stuff. This is just what I have right now, nothing too fancy. But there's also your storage that you can keep here in your base, including one for doing heists, which is an extra event that you can go do. Your storage, which I have a little bit of issue with currently. And then, of course, you have different NPCs that will sell things to you. There is so much for a new player and very easily to get overwhelmed with. But take your time and you will figure it out pretty quickly. There's also a ton of guides out there, as well as a couple mods that will allow you to sort items into the best possible use for your character. Now, as you can see here, I have a ton of little minions following me around because this witch is a summon character. So I can summon a bunch of skeletons, I have some golems, I have some spirits, all kinds of interesting stuff, and the primary attack currently summons little flaming skulls, which is really cool. Now, you can use a lot of these abilities on other characters, and you can mix and match the spells to make some pretty interesting combos. As you can see here, my character has a ton of gems linked right now, that each one of these will give you a different effect. These round gems here are add-ons that will make your abilities a little bit stronger. These more sharp ones are your actual skills themselves. And there are a number of support gems that you can equip, including ones that give you multiple projectiles, ones that turn your spells into totems, and ones that make your spells ricochet and hit other enemies. We're going to take a look at some of those right now. So, whenever you're ready to start combining abilities, as you can see here, we have an ice spear. We'll go ahead and equip that. And it's just a very basic spear. It shoots out some little icicles that will speed off into nowhere. But if we add in a projectile one, as you can see, we can throw a lot more of the ice spears. But we can also do things like this, which turns this into a totem. I can no longer cast the spell myself. Instead, this totem becomes a mobile turret. Any creature that comes near that is going to have a very bad day. With our new little turret, we can now throw it down. It will take damage, but as we level, these things will get more powerful, and it will simply shoot all of the enemies that come near it, and we can even further make this thing more powerful by adding in a chain, making each of the projectiles hit an enemy and bounce to the next, which is really, really useful. And you can come up with some pretty amazing combos. Now, there are plenty of different spell types that you can choose from. There's fire, there's lightning, there's summoning damage, there's hexes, there's curses, there's all kinds of good things that you can choose from as far as the witch is concerned. And each of the different play styles feel pretty unique because you can build up your own skills in the way you want. It's definitely not nearly as limited as Diablo. On top of your regular skill gems, there are of course ones that are corrupted, meaning you cannot change some of them, and they have extra abilities associated with them. There are of course some unique items that you can get that have some pretty interesting stats to them. Here's a couple examples of the ones that I have here. Some of them are really good, some of them are kind of meh. It depends on what kind of build you're going for. Next, let's talk about the in-game currency. Everything I have on here is in-game currency. Now each of these have a different ability. You can reforge items to make them into magic items. You can take regular magic items and turn them into unique items. There's a chance that you could change a unique item into a legendary item. And of course each of these you can use to upgrade your gear. There's even ones that give you passive skill points, and there's ones that remove modifiers, turning it back into a regular gray item. On top of each of these different things here are money items. It is the only currency within the game that you can use. You use it to trade with players, you use it to trade with NPCs, and you're going to end up with a lot of it, assuming that you play for a while. Next, let's talk about the cosmetics. So as you complete challenges or you complete things on the battle pass, you will get a few different things to alter the look of your character, including little headpieces here. You can change yourself to have glowing eyes. I don't have very many here because I usually play through a season once if I get something awesome and then I move on. Don't really do too much of the PvP stuff, although there is a PvP scene that you can get into. And each of these will net you some more cosmetics, which can be a little bit of fun. It all depends on how competitive you want to be. But with a basic introduction, very basic introduction to the game, there is, of course, the pros and cons section. So the first thing I want to go over, since we were just talking about cosmetics, is the cash shop. Now, there are a ton of items that you can purchase within the cash shop. Some of them look really good, some of them are kind of meh, but there are a lot of them, which is a positive. It's a free-to-play game, right? So I have no problem with them selling items that are purely cosmetic. On the con side of the cash shop is the stash tabs. Now, as you've seen earlier, my currency tab is packed with items. And the only way to lessen the burden of that stash would be to purchase one of these here stash tabs. I am no means a rich person, so I don't have the funds to go into every game that I play and purchase things that aren't cosmetic, that actually affect the way you play and actually affect a large portion of the game, considering how many different currency items there are and abilities to upgrade your gear and things like that. Our next pro is definitely the visuals in the game. So the game released back in 2013. Yes, it's that old. And the game still looks really, really good. Now, they've constantly been adding and adjusting the visuals for the game. The spells definitely look a lot different. They've added a ton of new assets, including monsters and bosses, and of course cosmetics, which make the game look and feel really good. They are working on a Path of Exile 2, which will definitely increase the quality of the game. I've also not experienced any FPS drops that were too insane. I haven't had any issues with the game running well, no big visual glitches. I don't really have anything too negative to say in the visual category. Hopefully they continue to make the spells look really, really good. Our next pro is definitely the amount of customization. With the ability to change the spells in any way that you want, as well as a number of slots that you can put different talents into, you can really play however you want, which is really cool. On the con side of the content is the overwhelming amount of content. Now, the spells alone can be a little bit difficult to get used to, especially when you're first learning. There are plenty of guides out there, which is great, but as they're not really put out there by the developers themselves, you're going to have to rely on other players. There are plenty of forums that you can go to check these out, and I would strongly suggest doing so if you're just starting. Our next pro is the multiplayer. You can join a large number of players to go through and raid different areas. On the con side of the multiplayer is the fact that items that fall to the ground, everybody can loot. Now, you can change it to where you have a short duration before anybody else can take something that falls on the ground that you want to keep for yourself. However, it's a very short window. Our next con, however, is the story. It's so uninteresting. Despite the amount of little audio logs they have and things like that, it's just not that interesting. The abilities and things like that going off while you're trying to listen to an audio log can be a little tedious. Eventually you're going to want to get back to the combat, and some of the audio that you're going to be listening to is extremely long. There's not very many cutscenes, and it all feels like you're just sort of clicking through things in order to get to the next mission, to get your next reward, to get to the end game, which is where the primary content is. However, with all that out the way, we have now come to the rating. So, despite the game coming out quite a while ago, the game continues to be fun because they're constantly adding in new and better content, new trials, new passes, new items, new spells, new ways to play. And with all that in mind, definitely going to give this one about an 8.5. The story really brings me out of it, and the cash up with the tabs being something that you have to purchase. And that's going to do it for us here today. Thank you everybody for stopping up. I greatly appreciate you. Hopefully you'll go and check out Path of Exile for yourself, because it's a free-to-play game. I would definitely recommend doing so if you're a fan of dungeon crawlers, games like Diablo and whatnot, without the massive $80 price tag. So, with that said, be sure to get down in the description, check you out all those media links, likes, follows, subs, all that fun stuff, and then take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, stay healthy out there, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye everybody.